Ladies and gentlemen, right now, it feels like the WWE can't do anything right in the eyes of fans. People are mad at WWE, whether it's for the ridiculously high ticket prices, poor booking, repetitive booking, underwhelming premium live events, ruining John Cena's retirement tour. The people are mad. But in today's video, rather than bringing in problems, I'm bringing in solutions from you. Because I asked you, how would you fix WWE in 2025? And here are a bunch of your answers. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And you know, if the daily wrestling content isn't enough, go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZab, where you're gonna get so much more extra content that we can never upload here because it would just get blocked due to copyright. So go check it out. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. You already know. Let's get started. A mass call up from NXT. It wouldn't fix everything wrong with WWE, but a fresh wave of talent, new feuds, new gimmicks, new matches would be an injection of positivity and energy in a time where WWE seems stale and repetitive. I think it's really easy to point this out as a way to fix the current product of the WWE. However, I'm not necessarily convinced that more new people will all of a sudden equal better television, mostly because usually when we get a huge influxion of new talent, what happens is that much of that new talent doesn't get used in the way that they should be. Instead, they end up in catering or don't get used as well as they ought to. Somebody like Carmelo Hayes is a perfect example, and don't even get me started on Julia. I do think that calling people up does add an injection of energy. I do think that you're right in that regard, but if they're not going to be booked properly, that injection of energy will only solve the problem temporarily as opposed to giving us a fix for the long term. I really am now a believer with how many NXT call-ups I've seen fail and just not get used, that people should only get called up when there's something for them of substance, when you actually plan on using them. Again, look at Julia. I think that's a perfect example of somebody where you can just simply ask, why in the world did they call her up if they were just going to have her talent be hidden in catering? Sure, she's a United States champion, but she may as well not be. Like, there's really no difference in her being a champion and not a champion right now with how she's being utilized. And I unfortunately see the same thing happening over and over and over and over again. It's not just something that is relegated to recent call-ups. Like, this has been happening since literally 2015. It's a problem that has persisted in WWE with their NXT call-ups since the inception of the idea of NXT call-ups. So I don't think right now the fix is to bring people up from NXT to inject new life. I think first, to be able to use that as a fix, you need to fix the concept of the NXT call-up first before you can use a mass call-up as a way to fix the current product. I would lower the ticket prices, or at least make the cards match the energy of the ticket prices, because I should not be paying WrestleMania ticket prices and in return getting Saturday night's main event level cards. So this was far and away the most common answer that I received, to lower the ticket prices. And I don't blame people, because it feels like WWE has priced out like 60% of their fan base. Have you seen the recently revealed ticket prices for WrestleMania 42? They are genuinely baffling. You are looking at having to make an actual conscious decision as to whether or not you want to eat that month and instead go to WrestleMania. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be getting better anytime soon. TKO has already come out and said that there is a lot more room and opportunity to increase ticket prices even more. And now that they see that they have increased these ticket prices and they continue to still sell out these stadiums and arenas, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tooth, man. Like, this is just about to get worse. I would agree if they were to lower the ticket prices to something significantly more reasonable and increase with the pricing of inflation, I think that that would make WWE a better place in 2025. But I feel like it's entirely unrealistic when we're talking about big corporate greed, when we're talking about stakeholders, when we're talking about stockholders. They will always chase the bag. And if people continue to buy these tickets, well, then we are just sort of justifying their financial greed and decisions, because it seems to me, unfortunately, like they were right all along. Now, I think it's interesting to have dynamic pricing based on the PLE, as you're saying here. I do think that, you know, paying like $5,000 for fourth row seats at WrestlePalooza is highway robbery, but maybe not the same level of highway robbery if it was SummerSlam or if it was Survivor Series or Money in the Bank, a bigger, better card. But I don't think that you can do that, because then you are inherently saying that this show is garbage compared to our other shows. And I don't think that WWE WWE or any business would ever do that. I think they want to sell every single show like it's this marquee event that you can't miss. More women's main events because they steal every PLE, and the future is stacked with talent in NXT. I'd like to maybe explore this a little bit more. I do like the idea of more women in the main event scene because every time that they get placed there, well, they always deliver. They always give us the best match of the night. Look at recently Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. So many people are praising that because it was a very good match, because it was a different main event. I think if I wanted to create like a good symbiotic relationship here, I would just say when you're running stale with the men's main event, put in the women's main event for a while, because it will by default entertain people because they are so good, while also allowing the men's main event feud, I'm looking at you, the Vision versus all of the baby faces, to have some time to rest and mature a little bit without just being overexposed in the main event. So if there was more cross-breeding of the men's and the women's main event scene, I do feel it would be beneficial for everybody, giving more eyes to the women in the main event scene while giving the men's main event scene time to breathe and not get stale. Have you ever tried Googling your own name or email before? I did recently, and what I found was wild, because there were dozens of sites that were listing my name, my old addresses, phone numbers, old phone numbers, even addresses of places that I've never even lived before. To be honest, it felt kind of violating, like someone was quietly selling parts of my life behind my back. That's why I'm glad that today's video is sponsored by Aura. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your numbers or why your inbox is full of spam, this is why. Data brokers. These companies collect your personal information without your consent and sell it to marketers and scammers, and sometimes even worse. And yes, they are required by law to remove your information at your request, but they make it so complicated enough to the point where the average person just doesn't have the time in the day to be able to take care of that. That's why I use Aura, because they do the hard part for you. Aura automatically requests removal of your data from these sketchy websites, and it makes sure that your data stays off of there. And that's not all, because Aura is like an all-in-one digital bodyguard, because you're going to get real-time alerts if your info shows up on any sketchy websites on the dark web, fraud notifications for your credit and banking, a VPN, an antivirus, a password manager, the works. All with 24/7 support just in case. Now, if something does go wrong, Aura does include $5 million in identity theft insurance, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Luckily for you, you can try Aura completely for free over at aura.com/SantiZap for 14 days. That's enough time for Aura to start working its magic without you lifting a single finger. Thank you again to Aura for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get you back to the wrestling conversations that you came for. Start building up younger talent like Ilya, Carmelo, Braun, Roxanne, etc. Give them more main event spots and title reigns. Building them now would make seamless transition once names like Cody, Seth, and Roman are gone. I do think that right now there is an over-reliance on older wrestlers and older stars, especially in the men's main event side of things. All of the top stars are either nearing 40 or are at 40, some of them even pushing 50, like Cena and Brock Lesnar. And there is this massive crop of talent that's in their 20s, in their early 30s that absolutely are main event ready, but they just don't seem to want to let go of the old guard. They seem to be very comfortable living within the comfortable, living with the known commodities like the like the Seth Rollinses of the world, like the Cody Rhodeses, like the Roman Reigneses, and there seems to be hesitation with these younger guys and pushing them to the moon, which I think is a mistake. I think just like trying to create a fair balance of the men's main event scene and the women's main event scene, I think that it would be smart in the long term to create a balance of older main event stars and younger main event stars. Funnily enough, I feel like they're doing a much better job on the women's side of things, because you have Rhea Ripley as a megastar, but also you have the likes of Bayley and Becky Lynch that are in their 30s. But it feels like, especially in the men's main event side, unless like your name is Braun Breaker, and even he isn't like in the main event yet, to be in the main event, you need to be one of the older, more established superstars. I would fix the bookings of champions. When you think about it, under Triple H, there haven't been a lot of good championship reigns. I would make sure that every champion has either a promo or a match on every episode of Raw and SmackDown, and always has a storyline for a title building. I like the last part that you said. There's always a storyline for a title building. That that is what's missing, because I do think, to a degree, with how big the roster is and how limited time is now, with SmackDown being 2 hours, Raw being 2.5 hours, that you can't really expect every single champion to have a match and appear on every show and cut a promo on every show. But that's not even what I'm asking for. I'm just asking for progression. I am asking for cohesion in their storytelling, so that it isn't just start-stop with many of the titles that we have, like the tag titles and the mid-card titles specifically. And then sometimes WWE likes to just put titles on hiatus. Like, look at what happened with Io Sky as the Women's World Champion, where she developed nothing during her reign as Women's World Champion, sadly. So all I ask, and I do think it would make for a better product, is for there always to be incremental steps towards developing storylines and relationships and characters towards getting to the eventual big match. Make the mid-card titles a showcase of technical wrestling rather than a stepping stone to the main event. It worked with Lyra, it worked with Gunther, and it will work well with Julia too. Well, I think you can have both, right? You can have it be a stepping stone and have it be a showcase of technical wrestling, or just a showcase of wrestling in general. I've always believed that the mid-card champions should be your workhorses, because if you don't want to overexpose your WWE champion or world champion, you don't want them having matches every single episode of Raw and SmackDown because you want to make them into this hot commodity that's only available on PLEs, for example. If that's the case, then you have no reason to not feature your mid-card champions on a regular basis on Raws and SmackDown and have them be your fighting champions. Have them be the ones that are having matches for regular stakes on those episodes. Because let's not forget, man, like, people are also paying like a lot of money to just go to Raws and SmackDowns as well. Like, those aren't cheap either. And I really like the idea of, hey, you know, yeah, Cody Rhodes is our champion. You're not going to get a televised match from Cody Rhodes because we want you to want Cody more and we're going to save him for a PLE. But hey, that's fine. Here's Sami Zayn. Here's our Intercontinental Champion to showcase and give you championship caliber matches on these shows. That actually used to be the norm. That's how they used to do things, but it doesn't feel like that's the case anymore. It feels like they're focused on keeping the champions away from fans until PLEs, and then just not feature mid-card champions a lot of the times on Raws and SmackDown in general. I would low-key have a draft, because the way that Raw is stacked with women is crazy. Raw has the best women's division compared to SmackDown, while SmackDown has the better tag team division. Yeah, I do think that right now, like in terms of fixing programming at the moment, there is an imbalance, especially with the divisions that you pointed out here. I think it would be really beneficial for SmackDown to get some more mid-card or main event caliber women, because right now it's pretty much just entirely Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax, and Jade Cargill at the moment, and that's not particularly inspiring when you continue to run any combination of those three for the past 7 months. And then you look at the Raw Tag Team division, and you might ask yourself, well, Raw Tag Team division, that's a fair point. There is no Raw Tag Team division, but you easily could make one if you do create a better balance and send some of the SmackDown teams over there to create a more balanced and more rich and fulfilled Raw Tag Team division. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that we just need better balance between the shows and the divisions, and I do think that a draft might address that, but you could just straight up just move people. You don't need to do the whole glitz and glamour of a draft. Stop relying on nostalgia. This is a big one. Like, WWE, especially in the 2020s, has focused heavily on nostalgia, has focused heavily on returns, has focused heavily on callbacks. Right now, the John Cena retirement tour is pretty much just a big old nostalgia trip over the last 8 months. And when you rely so much on nostalgia, you kind of prevent the younger talent that we talked about earlier from being able to earn these spots in the main event scene, because those spots are, one, already being held by the old guard, and then now being taken by an even older guard coming in to take that spot. I don't mind nostalgia in my wrestling. I think the way that wrestling is, and the way that wrestling history books work, and how much fans care about previous generations of wrestlers, how they care about like statistics of the past and whatnot. I do think that wrestling is a perfect place that allows for older wrestlers to come in and still showcase themselves and still generate a big buzz and big pop and sell merchandise. But But in 2020s, I would say that there's a big over-reliance on that, unfortunately. I'm not saying I wanted to go away. Again, I think for me, it's about finding the correct balance of nostalgia while pushing your current stars and the stars of the future at the same time. This moment, it should have been either Cena turning heel without Rock and Travis Scott so that he could pay off the storyline later by himself, or Cena didn't turn heel at all and won 17 at Mania as a babyface. Obviously, the results of one storyline wouldn't fix WWE at all, but one of the big things propping up WWE at the moment is the John Cena retirement tour. So if we could be having a perfect, flawless retirement tour without a bunch of what ifs, without a bunch of unanswered questions looming around us, I do think that by default we'd be having a better time as wrestling fans because we'd be able to enjoy the retirement tour a lot more. And the retirement tour is so important to the current booking and the current climate of today's WWE that I do think had they handled the John Cena retirement tour and heel turn significantly better, I actually do think that we would have a better set of like shows and PLEs at the moment. More hot potato title changes, especially in the main event scene. Oh my God, yes, I do agree with this. Look, ever since Roman's record-breaking reign, 1,316 days, there now seems to be this notion that like you have to have this long reign in order for it to be successful. But that has never really ever been the case in WWE. You look at the Ruthless Aggression era, you look at the Attitude Era, they were hot potatoing these titles left, right, and center, and it didn't make these titles feel less important. If anything, it just created more stars, number one, especially in the Ruthless Aggression era where they were experimenting with everyone left, right, and center, but it also gave us fresher feuds and more matches and storylines that weren't just the same thing over and over again over an 8-month stretch. On top of that, if you hot potato the titles a lot more and you don't just expect these year-long reigns, then every PLE match all of a sudden becomes a place where the title might actually change hands. Because I look at WrestlePalooza and I was like, well, obviously Cody's not losing there. I look at these smaller PLEs and I just know that big title changes aren't going to happen there. But if there were shorter reigns, a month, 3 months, 6 months, I do think that every single world championship match all of a sudden is worth a lot more as opposed to having to wait by default for the big important match at WrestleMania or SummerSlam. Maybe adding in a show exclusively for YouTube that can range from 30 to 60 minutes that solely focus on the mid-card IC and US titles of both genders can have matches and feuds for that show so that they can have something extra if they don't want to use them on the main event of Raw and SmackDown. I do understand where you're coming from. I understand your vision, but WWE has already done this before and it's still running to this day. It's a show called Main Event. And when Main Event was originally announced, dude, you should have seen the names that were on Main Event. They were featuring CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, Wade Barrett, like main stars were on Main Event, advancing storylines, having great matches. And then all of a sudden it just turned into the warm-up of Monday Night Raw where they have one match and it's just a massive recap show of the previous episode of Monday Night Raw. So they've tried it before and they still managed to not make it work. And I just don't think that they would last. I don't think that WWE has the patience to run something like this. Look, they already ended Speed on X/Twitter, whatever it is that you want to call it. I just don't see them wanting to run a show in a full production for a 30, 60-minute show that's only going to earn them YouTube revenue. I'm a YouTuber, okay? I know how YouTube revenue works. They ain't going to make their money back on a show when you tack in productions, costs of everything, etc. So I don't think that this is ever going to happen if you ask me. I just don't see it. Unless, of course, it's a deal with YouTube, like YouTube actually pays WWE to put on the show exclusively for YouTube, kind of like how X did for Speed. But again, even that didn't work. Stop booking long-ass title reigns. It's becoming too predictable when a champion is going to lose their title, which is most likely only on WrestleMania and SummerSlam. They need to bring back short title reigns and make it more unpredictable and create shock value. I won't spend long on this because we basically already talked about this, but I really like what you talked about here, the fact that title changes are unfortunately becoming really predictable, where it's like, yeah, WrestleMania or SummerSlam. Think about like the awesome moments that have happened this year. A lot of them are things that take place like at unpredictable moments, like Gunther defeating Jey Uso for the Intercontinental Championship on Monday Night Raw is a perfect example. You can look at earlier last year when Jey Uso beat Braun Breaker on a random episode of Monday Night Raw. There is value in shock. There is value in hitting somebody and punching them across the face in the moment when they don't see it coming. Because you're right, like I go into like most shows being able to easily predict and know when a title change is going to happen or not. And I do think that that hurts, not the big shows, it helps the big shows, it damages the smaller shows. I would do a lot less factions. They're still living off the hype of the bloodline, but now you have multiple factions per brand. You have the Vision, the Judgment Day, the New Day, American Made, LWO, and that's just on Raw. And some of them don't even get TV time. Just got to cut down on the amount of factions there are, in my opinion. There are the benefits and downsides of having all these factions. The benefit is that in order to feature one faction, you feature a bunch of stars. So it gives a bunch of people the ability to appear on screen and not get, put in the back burner or on the side. Like think about like the Judgment Day, whenever they would appear, it would give Carlito TV time. It would give everyone TV time. And that to me is a win. But you're kind of right. Like when you have that many factions, it does kind of dilute the idea of a faction as well. And when you have the opposite effect, right? When a faction isn't featured, they're all not featured. And all of a sudden, all of them aren't appearing. I don't know how this would fix anything, but like for me, I'm kind of like starting to lean towards agreeing with you where I would personally like to see less factions, but I don't know that that fixes anything if I'm being honest. We need more time space between PLEs. That way we can make deeper and better storylines. More time for PLEs would give more Raws and SmackDown time to build the mid-card feuds. So when PLEs come around, we can actually see titles like the Women's US title be showcased. This has been a big hot button topic. The amount of PLEs that we've had this summer was crazy. There was an insane stretch where I swear to God, we had like 9 PLEs in the stretch of like 8 weeks. I'm obviously exaggerating, but that's what it feels like. It just felt like we were on a crash course where we just kept crashing into a PLE after PLE after PLE and not being able to, like you said, build proper feuds, build proper storylines, build enough hype. I do feel like when you have this many premium shows, it dilutes the concept of premium. Now, from a content creator perspective, more premium shows is better because it's bigger shows to cover, which ultimately does mean more views and more attention, which is good for me. Yay. But as a fan, I do think that the product has gotten worse and less exciting when you only have 2-3 weeks to build for a major show. And it's gotten like especially bad recently where they can't even build the full card until the go home episodes of these shows. The go home episodes traditionally were to be to hype up the matches that were already announced, to give them one final hoorah before the show. And now the go home shows are where you're literally sometimes starting the feud. And that's not okay. I don't think this is going to change anytime soon because they make so much money off PLE ticket prices. If anything, it's about to get worse. No brand split, just 2 WWE shows a week. One champ, one mid-card champ, one tag team champ. Make it simple and it leads to a lot more mid-card feuds, similar to Sheamus versus Rusev or the intoning Priest versus Black feud. I think this would work in like early 2000s in the Attitude Era. I don't think that it works now. Like the roster is just too damn big. If you don't do a brand split, then who are you going to feature across both shows? You're probably going to feature the same people. Why? Because, well, if you've got a guy making you money on Raw, well, let's send them over to SmackDown to make double money there as well. And especially if you only have one set of championships across both shows, then you say it actually gives us more feuds. I argue it actually gives us significantly less, like literally by like a factor of 2. You're dividing the amount of feuds that you can have. So, Chris, I'm going to politely disagree with you. I think if we were in the 2000s, like I said, this would work. But now I think you'd be getting a lot of people fired. There wouldn't be a need for all of these WWE superstars that we have today. If anything, funnily enough, I disagree so much with you that I think there's room for a 3rd show and more titles. Make Triple H and his creative team play Road to WrestleMania mode on the old SmackDown versus Raw games. Dog, you're spitting facts. The storytelling that they had in those old games, and not even just SmackDown versus Raw. You can go to like the previous games, like SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, the Day of Reckoning games. The storytelling in those games, the long-term booking in those games, genuinely like shit on everything that's going on in WWE today. Getting rid of TKO. I don't know, man. That's like telling humans that we need to get rid of our lungs. It's just not gonna work. TKO owns WWE. It's just not gonna happen. The only way that this happens is if a separate group of investors investor comes in and they buy WWE from TKO, but like fat chance of that happening. And you think that if another group comes in and buys it from TKO that they would change anything? Nah, dude, like they probably make it worse. They probably charge even more money because now they went into debt to buy WWE like TKO went into debt to buy WWE. But yeah, this isn't happening, but I get the sentiment that much of the problems that have arose over the last year and a bit have been since TKO took over. Experimentation within reason, whether it's putting stars on PLEs that don't normally make it or giving them time on weekly TV against main eventers to see how they hold up. Right, guy, you basically explained the ruthless aggression era. This is what made that era of wrestling so exciting and so different than all of the other eras that we have today, because that was an era where they had no choice but to experiment because Stone Cold and The Rock left. So they're like, damn it, okay, we need to try new people. Let's try Brock Lesnar. Oh, damn it, he left. All right, sure, let's try The Big Show again. Let's make Kurt Angle one of our biggest stars in the company. Let's try Chris Benoit, RVD, Eddie Guerrero, the young guys, sure, Randy Orton, John Cena, give him a shot. Give this Batista dude a chance. Edge, sure, always a tag team guy, go for it. JBL, change his gimmick, give him a cowboy hat, give him the WWE Championship. Let's try it out. And for the most part, that worked. It really, really did. Sometimes it wasn't a huge success, but more often than not, it led to finding generational stars like Cena, Edge, Batista, Randy Orton. So I love the idea of experimentation. Like you said, within reason. And it doesn't even have to be in the main event. You can experiment in the mid-card now because we have so many mid-card titles. Cena's farewell tour, a double storyline with Logan Paul, squashed by Brock in not even a good story or a long match. Worst of all, the fumble of one of the biggest heel turns of all time. There were a lot of ups in Cena's last run so far, but many, many downs. Okay, so yeah, we already talked about this, and I think right now the way to go forward with the limited amount of dates that we have left for John Cena is just to let the man pick whatever the hell he wants to do, okay? We don't need storylines at the moment. We only have 5 days. You can't make storylines with 4 or 5 days that John Cena has left. Just let John Cena freaking pick out of a hat who he wants to face and just call it a day and let him ride out into the sunset. And for the love of God, stop feeding him friggin' Brock Lesnar again. Giving Finn Balor a single push. I do wonder if there is an alternate reality somewhere out there where Finn Balor didn't get hurt, where Finn Balor got to have a long, healthy run with the Universal Championship, having feud after feud, fantastic match after fantastic match. I believe that if we were living in that world, that we'd probably have flying cars at this point and everything would be fixed and WWE would be perfect. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you so much for your submissions. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.